Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Apostate Aladdin, or Aladdin if you can't pronounce that. Let's get right into it. Why would I use such harsh language in the title? Well, it's not my choice of words, it's Farid's. وَمَا أَنَا إِلَّا نَذِيرٌ مُبِينٌ. I am not but a clear warner.
What's the dumbest thing that you can do?
Before we get into what Farid says, one must ask themselves, who is this Farid Responds guy? That's the same question I had roughly 2 years ago when I came across his content. At the time, I was losing the little faith I had left and I desperately wanted answers. That's when I came across videos like these, which try their hardest to duct tape people's faith together by answering questions that cause doubts. Difficult questions such as, is child marriage bad? I mean, according to his YouTube channel, he's dedicated to refuting anti-Islamic content. If that coincides with defending child marriage, it's not a good look. So, in short, I'd give him the title of Muslim apologist or Islamic apologist, someone who defends Islam and argues for it amidst lots of controversy. Anyway, what does this defender of Islam think is the dumbest thing you can do?
Assalamu alaikum wa barakatuh. A quick message here to all you intelligent viewers. What's the dumbest thing that you can do when you have a doubt? It's leaving it in the comments or putting it in any public space, whether it's social media or forums or anything online for the public to see. That's the dumbest thing that you can do if you have a doubt.
That doesn't sound very dumb, but let's hear him out. Maybe he's got some solid reasoning behind this.
And the reason is because you can probably find an answer in the next couple of days. But guess what? That little question that you had that was bugging you, perhaps slightly, is now bugging someone a lot. Perhaps may push someone away from the deen. Perhaps it could cause someone to fall into apostasy. Why? It's because you felt like putting that shubha up online for the public to consume. And the reason you did that is because you're looking for an answer.
Immediately, I spot red flags. Why would it be so detrimental to Islam if the general public would discuss such ideas openly? Why are there so many shady things in Islam to begin with that require such impressive displays of mental gymnastics to justify? It's like if your wife suspects that you're cheating because of dozens of suspicious things about you, do you think giving her a long-winded answer about each one of them would make you look any less suspicious? Anyway, back to it. What should a Muslim do if they have questions or doubts?
But guess what? You can find an answer by contacting someone privately, by talking to a sheikh, by reading books on the subject, by Googling it. And the vast majority of arguments out there against the deen, you can find good answers to just by running a quick Google search.
Wait, hold up. Play that again.
The vast majority of arguments out there.
He's looking at this all wrong. This is my perspective from back when I was a Muslim. These questions are extremely reasonable to ask, and many Muslims come up with them on their own. Questions like, how do free will and predestination simultaneously apply? Why did Allah allow slavery? And the classic, why did Prophet Muhammad marry Aisha, a child? I don't think most Muslims have ill intentions by asking these questions. They're not arguments against Islam. I mean, maybe God does exist and he's pro-child marriage, either for everyone or for his favorite human who only he gets to speak to. Maybe. Inna Allah ala kulli shayin qadir. God is capable of anything and everything. The Prophet's marriage to a minor may not disprove Islam, but it does paint it in a very suspicious light. And people have the right to ask those questions. At least then we're clear about what Muslims think of the God that they worship and his messenger. Because apologists view these questions as arguments, they're so goddamn ready to say bizarre things, whatever it takes to defend the religion, no matter how absurd or disgusting. Things like, how is it child when there's parental consent? You heard that right. Or,
but did you know that in some states you can go a lot, lower than that?
That soundbite is particularly suspicious.
Did you know that in, let's say, Alabama and Rhode Island and Utah, if you were to get parental consent, you could get married to a girl who's 14 years old? Did you know that in New Hampshire and Texas, with parental consent, you can get married to a girl who's 13 years old? Did you know that in Kansas and Massachusetts, you could get married to a girl who's 12 years old? Did you know that in California, there is no limit if you have parental consent.
Okay, we get it. You can stop listing the states that you'd like to visit someday. Jokes aside, I'm not accusing him of anything, but I would not want this man within a mile of my child, or any child for that matter. Anyway, sorry about the tangent. I just wanted to give a demonstration of what questions this specific person claims he has the answers to.
You contact someone privately, contact a sheikh privately, contact a friend privately, contact me privately. Okay.
Now, here's what I think about the dumbest thing a Muslim can do. It's definitely not that. I think there's a great benefit to talking about these issues publicly. If Muslims listen to Farid and only ask their questions privately, it helps maintain this facade that Islam keeps up. The unity of the Ummah, this mirage of faith and belief that is slowly dissipating the closer you look at it. The era of instant communication poses a monumental threat to Islam and its image, and Farid knows that. I'm not saying don't ask sheikhs and only discuss Islam in comments and forums. I'm saying do ask multiple knowledgeable Muslims, read, research, and compare what you find. That's literally what I did as a Muslim before I ever discussed any of these things with strangers. Take all those answers, ponder them, and then discuss them with whomever you wish, as long as it's safe to do so. The fact that safety is even a concern is very, very telling. Go back to those sheikhs and ask follow-up questions. You're not a bad person for not accepting the drivel that Farid feeds you. I mean, it's this guy. Imagine being in a room with a man like him, be it physically or virtually. You're being fed ideas specifically engineered and curated to try to push you to a predetermined conclusion. The conclusion being that there's nothing to worry about. Islam always wins. Let's make it make sense together. And more often than not, you'd feel pressured to accept the answers given by the sheikh, who is addressing you personally and paying their immediate attention to you. The sheikh's tone, no matter how gentle, tends to shift when you're not agreeing with what you hear. Having these discussions publicly removes that burden and leaves you to think about it without as much pressure. Compare that situation with being in a classroom and asking the instructor a question. You wouldn't just get the answer, you'd also get the reactions of your peers. If the answer doesn't make sense to one of them, they get to ask for a clarification and you get to listen. You may be exposed to new angles from which you could approach this question, angles you may have thought of eventually or maybe not. But it's reassuring to have multiple people providing these answers and multiple people assessing them. And this, dear viewer, is where the problem lies for Islam's unified image. Once you inspect and compare these answers you find, you quickly notice that there's such a shotgun approach there. Throw things at the wall and see what sticks, basically. Some sheikhs will tell you that Aisha was a mature woman at the time of her marriage. Some would give excuses for child marriage, like Farid does. Some would dismiss it altogether and say that she was actually 19. What they all have in common is that they are defending the Prophet blindly. And look where that got them.
Let's try to change our modern laws right now, okay, before we attack people from the past.
To reforming state laws? No, wait.
So if Rasulullah ﷺ was in California today, he would have been able to get married to Aisha. It wouldn't have been an issue.
He's saying, how come they get to do it and my Prophet doesn't? Astaghfirullah al-Azim. Back to the point. Not only do these private conversations shield you from disagreements among the sheikhs, these conversations might give you the illusion that you're the odd one out. It may seem like everyone's on the same page about this, except for you, and the evil disbelievers, of course. And you wouldn't want to sound like a disbeliever now, would you? This right here is at the core of my Purpose of Aladdin. I was the odd one out, or so I thought. I was gaslit by this religion and many of its representatives into thinking that there's something wrong with me if I don't accept these answers. These are the whispers of the devil rather than rational thought and honest curiosity. So I don't take kindly to Muslim apologists like Farid. I want people to know that regardless of what they believe about God or religion in general, they are not the flawed ones for not accepting what the apologists regurgitate. That being said, the next part is a part that I somewhat agree with. Let's have a listen.
Whenever you come across a channel that has shubuhat that you find frustrating, that you don't have an answer to, you know what's the worst thing you could do? You could introduce an audience that's not aware of that channel to that channel by saying, hey, can someone respond to this obscure channel that no one knows about? Now you see, you're bringing a Muslim audience to that channel. That's a problem, okay?
He makes a really good point here. Muslims, please stop coming to my comments to tag your favorite apologist. I've seen what happens when ex-Muslims have back and forth interactions with people like Farid. I absolutely do not want that kind of audience or attention. The trollish, tribalistic, ready to defend the indefensible kind of commenter. I urge people like Farid to keep their audience far away from me. I mean, even though his name is Farid Responds, I don't expect nor want a response from him. I hope he doesn't respond to an upcoming video I'm working on that highlights all the ways disgusting child marriage apologetics seem to miss the point, remarkably every single time. Because this isn't a Farid problem. This is largely an Islam problem, and Farid isn't unique in his eagerness to clean up after his prophet. Regardless of how or what hoops he needs to jump through to get that done. At this point, I cannot believe that there's a need to explain to several 100 million people, including Farid, why marrying children is bad. But I'm glad that these conversations are now happening in public. Can you imagine being a malleable, impressionable young Muslim who reached out to a bearded man of faith only to have to listen to him rave for an hour about how Aisha's young age benefited Islam? I'm so glad these conversations are less private now. And about the title, what do I think is the dumbest thing a Muslim can do? Well, for starters, I wouldn't word it that way. It's arrogant as hell. I don't know all the dumb things someone could do to rank these things and pick a winner. And I think the word dumb is too insulting and uncalled for in this context. What I will say, though, is that one of the worst things a Muslim could do in the context of their journey with belief or disbelief is shutting down their brain the moment that they hear some semblance of an answer. Let the answer marinate for a bit. Is it truly an answer, or is it simply a deflection? Like, other people marry children too. When you think about it alone without the pressure of having to nod along, does it satisfy the question you had? Take your ego out of the equation and think. It's not an argument. It's not an argument. And to wrap this up, I'll leave you with something to ponder. You're free to discuss it in the comments, but you're just as free to digest it alone. If someone lost their faith after concluding something based on the Prophet's marriage to a child, are they a bad person who deserves hell? Do you really think that they wanted Muhammad to do what he did just so they could stop believing? And the way that he phrases that fell into apostasy. It's like he almost gets it. He's almost there. If good, honest Muslims can be swayed into hell because of reading the right comment at the right time, or rather the wrong comment at the wrong time, what kind of arbitrary judicial system is Allah employing here? Is Allah setting up traps for Muslims by littering Islam with shubuhat? A perfect God wouldn't punish you for honest questioning and honest conclusions. You do not have to fear the boogeyman that is hellfire, at least not because of your disagreement with apologists and sheikhs. Regardless of how you feel about my apostasy, regardless of whether or not you believe in God, I urge you to always think critically and think for yourself.